I am born through the storm, through the night. Lead me on through the night. Precious Lord, lead me on when my way growing near. Precious Lord, linger near when I'm not here long. Oh, now, hear my cry, hear my call. Oh, my hand, let thy fall, take my hand. Precious Lord, lead me on.
Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Here we are again, doing the same thing, even with the time change. And I remember when I was young and attending church at the time. I got up, getting ready to go to Sunday school. Got there, two more people there, didn't realize time had changed. We sat there looking around, waiting on everybody else. So it's good to see you all here and with the time change. As we get our lesson, we kind of go back over last week to talk about Moses. And we know this was Moses' final speech to the Israelites. And during his final speech to the Israelites, they began to get a little shaky because Moses had led them all the way from where he brought them from, Egypt. So they began scared after Moses was in the lead them. But Moses also told them there was one among them that would still be greater than him. They said Moses was a great leader, but the one Moses talking about was greater than him, and that one was Jesus Christ, that we talked about last week. So we know Moses gave them the law, but what Jesus did, he gave them grace and mercy. That made him more powerful than Moses was. And as we begin to look at this lesson here, and we see since Moses have passed off the scene, there was another person. So last week we told you, in order to be a good leader, you need to be a good follower. So Moses was the leader, and Joshua was the follower. Now, since Moses gone off the scene and Joshua began to pick up on the scene, we see that in a leader sometimes a follower leader leads, the follow the leader. But in order to be a good leader, we say you need to be a good follower. But what you do, you pick up from that leader and you add on to make it even better. You don't let it stand still. Joshua could have just said, okay, we're going to stop right here. But that wasn't planned. When Moses died, God wanted Joshua to take on from there. So even in our churches, we see, once a person leaves, and you have somebody should be able to step up and continue what's going on. Let's look at our church here. We know what happened when Reverend Tyler passed. The other Tyler picked up, and he continued with doing what he was doing, but he add to things, not taking that from him, but you always add to it to make it better. That's what a good leader does. Now, a leader that they call themselves just do nothing. Well, this is what we had from God, then that's why that vision began to produce. And look at our subject what we have now, making wise choices. Now, when she read our introduction, they gave us a lot of things to think about. What's the first thing you think about? When God declared you this morning to arise, the first choice you made should have been was, thank you, Jesus. That's your first choice you should have made. But what about some people? When God allowed them to rise this morning, well, that's just what I'm supposed to do. But that's not what it's supposed to be. Once He allowed you to rise and you thank Him, what was the next choice you had to make? Well, what am I going to church? Or am I going to sit home? Well, am I going to get me a bottle and party? Or am I going to just enjoy the day? All them kind of choices we make. But are those wise choices? This thing is talking about making wise choices. Now, what is some of the wise choices we can make? The most important wise choice we can make is that let God lead you. When God leads you, you're going to be led. Now, that's not saying that everything that God does, we understand it. God's ways are not our ways. when I began to look at this thing here and think about some of the choices we make and what God say, you know, I thought about that preacher. That old preacher that God had him marry a prostitute. Y'all remember that man, Jose? Now think about that man. How would we feel if God lead us to marry a prostitute? What you think about that? What's the first thing you said? Well, we know this woman, she's been through the road because she's a prostitute. But that's why I said, God's ways is not like our ways. So we can't see things that God sees. God has a plan. And that was the plan right now for this preacher. This was a preacher. He said to marry a woman. So begin to go back when we're talking about some of the choices we make and understand what God says. But when you let God lead you in the proper way, the choice is going to be good. Here comes Joshua. He's beginning to take the lead right now. As we begin to look at old Joshua, if you think about Joshua, who gave him that name, Joshua? Moses gave Joshua that name. Joshua's name was Hoshea, but that means Jesus. So look what Moses done. He named him Jesus because Jesus meant salvation and Jesus meant to deliver. So what is Joshua about to do now? Joshua is about to deliver those people. Look at that. Moses already saw that. God gave him that. So he gave him that name now. Through the Bible we see Joshua. But that's where it's come from, that word Joshua. As we begin to look at this lesson, the first chief here we see, this is Joshua the chief. Now here's Joshua when he encountered a chief even greater than him. Now, how do you think Joshua would feel knowing God was in him? I am the big chief. Here comes somebody that's bigger than I am. So what did that mean in our sense? Think about it. We feel a little small there because I've been leading people all the time. And here come a chief greater than I am, chief. But through God, lead Joshua didn't accept that. That's the thing we got to accept what God put on our heart, how God is, because God talked through the heart to us. And the first thing he says, when you encounter this chief, look here what Joshua's going to do. Go ahead and read it.
And it came to pass, when Joshua was by Jericho, that he lifted up his eyes and looked, and behold, there stood a man over against him with his sword drawn in his hand. And Joshua went unto him and said unto him, Art thou for us, or art for our adversaries?
Look right here. And it came to pass, I begin to look at that word, and it came to pass up here 120 times in the Bible, and it came to pass. Kept saying, and it came to pass. Then it said, Joshua by Jericho. What do we know about Jericho? Well, the first thing we know that Moses sent out 2 spies. Joshua sent out 2 spies. Joshua's 2 spies went to Jericho. And what happened in Jericho? Jericho was a pagan place. Rahab. And what was she? She was the town lady. We know what I'm talking about, the town lady. Late of the night. That's what she was. But look what happened. This late of the night, because the king had heard about they was there. So what he do, he sent out his people looking for them. In this late of the night, she put them away. And the thing about that, the lady of the night had heard about what happened. What had happened? They had crossed the river Jordan. So what are you talking about? If you remember, when Moses got to the Red Sea, what did he do? Through God, he did what? He parted the water. So here we are right here. Joshua doing the same thing. When they got out to Jordan, he sent men out and told them to get 12 and do this and do that. And what happened there? The river parted and they walked through. So what did Rahab told them? I know God did that because we had what? We heard about Joshua. Ain't that somehow the word get around? They heard about what he had done. They had parted Jordan. So what they did, she knew that and she said, now, when you come back, because I know you're going to take this time. They said, when you come back, I want you to spare me. What they told her? We're going to spare you, and we're going to spare your whole family. What did she do? And who was moving right there? That was God moving right there. He moved to her. the later of the night. And look what she did. What happened to you? She hid the man. But remember, when they told her, how are you going to recognize that? What I want you to do is take that same string and put it down there. So when they come, we see that string, make sure you have all your family in that place because you're going to be spared from that. Look how God is still moving there. What the next part is saying here now? Then God told him about to fold. Let's get it right now.
Yeah, whichever one.
I'm a deacon.
Oh, that's a deacon. He's a deacon.
Yes, sir.
I got to remember that was long Jericho, they was gonna come back and march around, and she lived on it.
We had got there. We gonna get there. We just talking about how. If I'm not mistaken, we just told where she lived. She lived in this pagan place. And this pagan place was Jericho.
Oh,
So God, we gonna get there. So preacher trying to get us past what we are, we gonna get there. We know where she lived at. And let's get this straight now. You know, I'm not a preacher. I'm just a teacher. And that's all I expect from God to use me. If he used me, fine. But I think I've been long enough for everybody to look at I'm not a preacher. You never heard me call myself a preacher. You never will hear me call myself a preacher. You hear me call myself for just what I'm doing, teaching. Because God will hold me responsible just like he holds preachers responsible. If I tell you something wrong, that's going to be on me. That's what God does. So let's get back to what we got right here now. I hope I got that. I've always had to make myself clear and understand what we're talking about. The next thing you say, I might read it.
and he said, nay, but as captain of the host of the Lord am I now come. And Joshua fell on his face to the earth and did worship and said unto him, what said my Lord unto his servant?
Look at here. As captain of the host, Lord, am I not come? And Joshua fell on his face to the earth. Look what that was not his enemy. He fell down on his face and he began to worship him. Then he said, what do you want me to do? Look at that. This is Joshua telling me, what do you want me to do? I recognize that this is not the ordinary man. This is not the place, because they said in this pagan city, all those people there that I read about, those were giant-like people. So here we are right now. Joshua did all this conquering, and this is the next thing that he has to do. Another plan for God. I told you, God always had a plan, and with that plan, God has a purpose with it. Then we look at the next part. This is what I really like here, 15.
And the captain of the Lord's host said unto Joshua, loose thy shoe from off thy foot, for the place whereon thou standest is holy. And Joshua did so.
Look at that. And the captain of the Lord of hosts said unto Joshua, loose thy shoe from off thy foot, for the place where he standing is holy. You know, he is still speaking. Now, when Joshua began to think about that, who was speaking, Joshua realized that this was God speaking. But in it, remember, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost all makes one. So this was Jesus speaking to him. And what did he tell him? When he came down, he said, go tell Moses. When Moses came up there, he told Moses, loosen our shoe. And then the other key part right here, not only that, he said, the place where you're standing is holy. Wait a minute. The place you're standing is holy? So what are you saying there? Anytime you're in the presence of the Lord, it is what? Holy. This wasn't no certain place. This was a pagan place. When Abraham went out, it wasn't no certain place. But who was there? God. So if God in the presence, that means it's holy. So what is it? God is a omnipresent God. So God is everywhere. So what about now?
Well, I really praise on the whole around inside the church.
Holy.
Well, all of it, you know, you love it now.
Present, in the presence of God. In the presence of God is holy. Anytime you commit, wherever you commit yourself in, That means God is in the trouble. When I walk out in my car, who is there? So what does that make my car be? Anywhere God is in trouble. Anywhere God is trouble. But what happens? We chase God out, but he is still there because he is not in front of God. That means God is everywhere. In your house. When you sitting up with your shoe kicked off and drinking the suds, who is there? Did I hear somebody say? Okay. In your house, when you and your wife, you know how you be doing it, till somebody knock on the door and everything cease, who is there? Where's he at?
Wait a minute.
So that means that makes that to be what? Holy. Holy in the presence of God. That's what he was telling me. Take off your shoes. Look at here. Then I read about, as I said, when you think about Moses, he took Moses on holy ground. This said holy. Now it said 2 times in the Bible. It mentions about holy ground. When Moses, and then you go back to Acts. But what Acts does is repeat the same thing that happened to Moses about the holy ground. This is talking about holy place, wherever you stand. So when you meet God, you always have to give God that reverence. Do we do that? Do we give that reverence? God. Do we realize that he's with us? That song said he is with us when? All the time. Look what happened. All the time he's with you. So that means that I need to keep myself what? Clean. I need to keep myself holy because God is with me all the time. Even when you come in at 12 o'clock at night and 1 o'clock in the morning. When you think that you're sneaking there, who is there? God. You know, I remember when I was young, I have to go back. When I was young, call myself sneaking in. But who was there? I'm talking about home. Everything I see, that time of morning, I would see old dog. Did you notice that? Dogs never sleep at night. Dog and a man, niggas everything never sleep. So even if you're sneaking, somebody's always watching. If not the neighbors watching you, somebody's there. But what's
I pronounce it so weird.
now, see, he want to get us into it. Well, I see him in talking, so that's good stuff like that. But the point is that place, but it still was holy because God was God. What that meant about that? Yes, ma'am.
I had a customer one time, she told me that she went and sat on the bridge,
Mm-hmm.
Highway 61, and she said she just sat there, and it was like 3 o'clock in the morning. And she said, first, the man passed by her and said, "How you doing, ma'am?" And then she said, "I'm doing okay." And then she said, secondly, a woman passed by and asked her the same question. "Ma'am, how are you doing?" She said, "I'm doing okay." And she said later on, she just got off the bridge and went back home.
Mhm.
So I'm like, you know, I got the feeling that she was in the presence of someone. So she got down and she went back home.
Uh-huh. You see, God is always here. He is here all the time. He's with us all the time. Remember, it says about, remember how you treat a stranger house to the other side. A peculiar person. When you begin to live for God, your whole life is supposed to change. You can't play back and forth with this thing. This is not a back and forth thing. You got to live what's right there. You know, as I began to read this lesson, and I thought about it, it said Jesus appeared 10 times in the Old Testament. Isn't that something? 10 times before he was born, he appeared 10 times. 10 times in it. Here's another time, because they said, this is what he realized that was Jesus there. He's already appeared. And I began to read them. It says, Genesis 16 and 10, he appeared to Hagar. Then I read again, but it says, Genesis 1, he appeared to Abraham. You know, Jesus instead appeared and hadn't been born. Hadn't been born where? In the flesh. Because what it said was what?
The word.
And what was the word?
With God.
And
And the word was.
action. So what that tells me? Jesus was there from the beginning. He just hadn't appeared to man. He said, he want to appear to man because he wants to see how suffering was. So what he do? He sent his son.
Son.
And that all makes what? One. So Jesus already appeared before he appeared. I like that. Do you like that? How he appeared before he appeared? That's what's happening right here. Now, as we begin to look here, there's a question says, that question, how does Joshua encounter with God compared to what that of Moses of the burning bush? What's the spiritual lesson does the text teach us? How was Joshua compared to Moses? Joshua appeared on a place. Moses appeared on holy ground. Look what it was. So both of them appeared. They both were in the presence of God, but they both did different things. One says that God come in, that makes it holy. God told them, use on holy what? Ground. On appear twice in the Bible. It's holy. Constant appear to the Bible. Holy. What does the word holy mean? Holy means what? Holy. When you say you're holy, you are God-like. When you're holy, you're living for who? You're living for Christ. You want to be like Christ. Can you be holy and not Christ? Because if you be holy, you want to be like Christ. But so in the word holy, it says when you talk about Christ, in Christ, that makes it to be holy. So if I'm living for Christ, I want to be holy. I don't want to be where I was. I want to be where I'm going to be that way. And I'm going through salvation. And here we see Joshua going to do some of that salvation because Moses told him, your name would be Joshua, which means deliverance. And who we are to get to that point there, the point of deliverance. Anybody else? All right, the next one said, the command-in-chief battle strategy. Before you go to war, you got to have a plan. Now, Joshua had been walking around, you know, they had the time there. He just did this conference, and he know that after spies came back, he told them how this land looked. He's thinking, good leader do. You doing nothing. He's planning. And here's the plan and strategy. The strategy is that how I'm going to do this here. And it says, let's see.
Now Jericho was straightly shut up because of the children of Israel. None went out and none came in.
This was a fortress. You couldn't get out and you couldn't get in. Think about that. It's shut up just that tight. Why was it shut up that tight? They had heard about it. What happened? They knew they was coming. So that means you're not getting out of here and you're not coming in here. But read that next one.
And the Lord said unto Joshua, see, I have given into thy hand Jericho, and the king thereof, and the mighty men of valor.
And who said that? The Lord said. You know, every time we read about it, we said, and the Lord said, this was not an angel. Because the man who said this was higher than angels. Now, who is doing this talk? This is Jesus. Anytime they say, and the Lord said, the Bible says, you talk, give you this in your hand. Okay, you gave to me. So what I got to do? And that's the next thing. I got to what? I got to believe. I got to trust. And I got to have faith. This morning, if you listen to what he read, it all was about faith. Bro, when we read this morning, all that chapter 11, chapter 11 is about faith. And this is what I'm here. He had to have faith. God told him, hey, this is yours. Now, look at something. How are you going to tell me it's mine? I had done anything. How can I tell you that? Because I'm who? I'm God. So that means this battle is already won. Isn't that something? God's battle is already won. All you got to do is what? Follow what I tell you to do. Listen to me. And what it says after that?
And 7 priests shall bear before the ark 7 trumpets of ram's horn. And the 7th day ye shall compass the city 7 times, and the priest shall blow with the trumpet.
Can we skip 3?
Did I skip one?
You skip 3.
Okay. And ye shall compass the city, all ye men of war, and go round about the city once. Thus shalt thou do 6 days.
Now, here we go. Here's the strategy. Joshua had a plan, but God had another plan. What was God's plan? God told him what to do. Have you noticed every time God gives people instruction, you have to follow instruction to a T? You don't deviate. What am I talking about? He told Noah to build a ark. Did he give Noah direction what to do? He told him what to do. Think about it. God gave him instruction. If Noah had not followed his instruction, that was what God told him to do. When God tells you to do something, you have to what? Do it. Even some things that God tells us to do. It does seem logical. But if you do what God said, in the end result, what's matter. That's what he told him to do. Now I'm going to tell you what to do. This is what you do. Well, for 6 days. And she just read number 4. So let's go back to number 4.
And 7 priests shall bear before the ark 7 trumpets of ram's horns. And the 7th day ye shall compass the city 7 times, and the priest shall blow with the trumpets.
He laid it out the blueprint. God laid the blueprint. First, you have 7 priests. They should come in for the ark. Now you know, if you read about that ark, they believed that the ark was God, was that ark with them. So wherever they went, they would carry that ark before they get ready to battle. So he told them like that. He said, now you're going to need 7 trumpets of ram's horn, and 7 days should come past the city. How many times? 7 times. And the priest shall blow with the trumpet. Look at that number, 7. You know, that's 7 that's keep jumping out on me. So it jumped out on me so much that my wife and I, we had 7 children. That's one 7. And then I thought about, I like 7 so good. You know, another 7 say, we're getting ready sometime this summer about the 7th month. You're going to celebrate what? 4th of July, which is called Independence Day. That's a what? That's a 7 too. That's a 7. You know, I began to look at them 7 like them, and you need to follow it and say 7. People used to say 7, that lucky 7. So here we are, 7 in the Bible. What does 7 in the Bible mean? Complete. And here we go right here. He told him to go around 7 times. Now, what's that next one tell us about?
And it shall come to pass that when they make a long blast with the ram's horn, and when you hear the sound of the trumpet, all the people shall shout with a great shout, and the wall of the city shall fall down flat, and the people shall ascend up every man straight before him.
What is God blueprint to follow? Joshua was wondering how was he going to accomplish this here, and God already had his plan for him. All you have to do, Joshua, is follow my plan. Here's the plan. Now you notice that it said, walk around there 7 times, and you notice on that 7th time, what are they supposed to do? They're supposed to shout. But before then, he didn't tell anything about shout. What are they supposed to do? Be quiet. Be quiet and just march around there. Just march around there and be quiet. But the last time, when you get there, I want you to shout. Here we go. The wall of Jericho. That's a fortress. In that, when you read about those walls, they had 2 walls within a wall. So you had to go across 2 walls to get to them. When the sun, they was really prepared. They was prepared. But who was missing in that preparation? God, because this was a pagan place. They didn't worship God. This was a pagan place. So they had to take this because God wanted to take this. In order for Joshua to get to his next step, he had to go through this place to take it. And God gave him to take this place in. And here's the blueprint that he must follow. In our life, God directs us to do some things that it sounds kind of crazy to us. Do you know that? The things that God tells us to do. But God only talks to you when you are close to him. When you are listening to what God is saying, God is always speaking to you. But I would find that we don't listen to what God is saying. We have our own mind. So what are we doing? We make those choices. And if I only have a listen, if I only have a listen, That happens to all of us sometime in life. I know it's not me. You have the same thing. But you wish you could, but you can't. But all you have to do is just listen. And here we are. All right, here's the question. Why does God call us to follow direction we may not fully understand? Get it right there. Yes, sir.
He just wants us to have faith and trust him.
He just wants us to have faith. That's the key word. You have to have faith. You trust, you believe, you have faith that God can do what he said. Think about it. Look where we are here in this church. What did Reverend Tyler have? He had faith. But first thing he had to have, when I said faith, he had a vision. A leader got to have a vision. Now, with that vision comes from God. Now, with that, the next thing, how they come up to what? Faith that if I build this church, those lights will never go off. If I build this church, those doors will never be closed. Why? Because I've let God use me and direct me. If I do it on my own, what would happen? Lights off, doors closed. Because who is not there? God is not there. I have to have faith that God is going to do that. Let's go back. We into this Bible. Reverend Tyler, he didn't close the door of the church. And I always tell you last week, our good leaders, what do? They improvise. And how did Reverend Tyler improvise? Every Sunday morning, he's called. How many churches around here doing that? You got to have a what? You got to have a vision. I'm going to close the door of the church. But then again, I'm going to still open the doors of the church. That's my vision. Who that gave me that? God has put that on his heart that don't close the doors. David said close the door, but I'm going to let the door still stay open. And look what happened. All the people just looking at Reverend Tyler Sunday morning. Isn't that something? He got more gains now than he was then because of the vision. Yes, sir, preacher.
Amen. And for a teacher, God requires us to trust him because he sees the bigger picture. I can only see so far. God declares the end from the beginning. So it's amazing how long you can be saved and not understand that whatever God says to you, do it. And you have to be in his presence to get that direction. And once you get that direction, do it like I told you to do it. A lot of people never reach their destiny and they never reach their full potential because of that pride, which they refuse to do it God's way and they do it their way, and it always messes up. So that's why God requires us to have that faith. If you can't do it his way, you won't get to where he's trying to get you there. He's trying to get you to go rather, because you have to have that direction. And whatsoever he says to you, do it like he told you to do it.
Something that God tells us to do, it makes no sense to us.
That makes sense.
But what do? What he just said, you do just like Mike. You still do it. And once you do it, the end result was matter. We have never stopped having service here. Isn't that something? From last March, we never stopped having service. We had it right here. We had it to the camera, and everybody watching. Because God told him to do it. You may close the doors, but I'm still going to do mine. And I believe and I have faith that God don't allow me to be successful. And I believe that we'll be successful because of that.
I want to make a statement in regards to the pastor and how he had mentioned in the sermon about in tribute to the women. This is Women's Month, and how you've got to listen. It's good to listen to your partner. And I'm not giving it to give kudos to Miss Tyler, first lady, because I know that her technology knowledge has kept this going as well. So he spoke because the Bible gave acknowledge that, because when you have daughters, you have to share that.
That's so good. And we appreciate it. We love our first lady. And we love her just like we do our pastor. Because he got somebody beside him to help him to go forward. It's good to have somebody beside him. It's good, it's nothing better than have, I have to brag myself, a good woman. You know, I brag about that. When a man got a good woman, he got himself
All
something.
right, Miss Brother.
He got himself something good. He got a woman. Now, let's look
Be
at-
quiet now, brother. Be quiet now.
But I'm gonna tell you something about it. Also, let's flip this thing around. When a woman got a good man, she got herself something too. So this thing goes both ways. Both of them have to be good. And both of them have to be led by none other than God. When God leads you, woman or man, everything's gonna be all right. Sometimes there have not been men in the house, but there's been a good woman. And a good woman can bring up those children. Not as well as a man, because a boy needs a man bigger, but a good woman can do her job.
Can't you do
That's what a good woman can do. Them that want to. But in order to all do that, you gotta be led by God. Let him lead you. When God leads you, he might lead you the way that you think you go. But the end, that's what I go back. The end is up, it's what counts.
Hey, Jack, real quick, I gotta throw this in here.
Go ahead, go ahead.
Raised pretty much by a single mom all my life. I'll say this, a woman can't raise a man, but she can raise a responsible person. If she gives the child God and teaches the child values, he can grow into a responsible man. She can't raise a man, but she can raise a responsible person. And she gives them God, and God shows the child how to become a man.
I like it. But who, he said, got to be her leader? God. She got to let God lead her in order for her to lead her children, her grandchildren. So it's all down and go right back to God. Give him the credit. He don't want to be number two to nobody. God is number what? Number one. If you can't see him number one, you need to move somewhere else, because that's what God do. He's number one. I like it. You know, I think this game is good this morning. So let's go a little further this year. It says victory through obedience. What's that mean? I'm gonna listen. Joshua had to listen to the blueprint that God gave him. He listened to some of us grown people to do. They try to obey somebody. That's the hardest thing. But God tells us, if you're grown, he don't need you. He wants you to be just like a what? Just like a child. So that all let me know that if I'm grown, he don't need me. I got to be obedient to the word. And this him, Bible said, victory through obedience. This kind of repeat what we just said. All right, baby.
Well, because you mentioned something about that earlier.
Come on.
About doing what God said do it. Now understand if you turn and being obedient. And throughout the Bible, let us know if you're obedient, it ain't gonna work. He even told, was that Sam? When he told him to go down there and kill everything, and then he heard a lamb. He said, what did I hear? And he told him then, he said, now obedience is better than sacrifice. And so we got to do it God's way, because you know, Abraham did the same thing. He said Sarah was too old to have a baby. He went and laid with one of them ladies in the house and got a baby, and it wasn't God's will. We got to do it God's way in order for it to come. We tell you that.
And God have a way of getting our attention. I think one way of getting our attention, it's been a year. This virus. God have a way to get everybody's attention. This virus is to give everybody attention. You know, he gonna get your attention. All we got to do is obey God's will. If you put him first and let him lead you, not saying your road not gonna be rugged sometime, that's not it. Look what we have here, but God's still gonna lead you. And this will tell us about that. Okay, read it.
And it came to pass on the seventh day that they rose early about the dawning of the day and compassed the city after the same manner 7 times. Only on that day they compassed the city 7 times. Blew the trumpets. Joshua said unto the people, shout, for the Lord hath given you the city.
Didn't put a hand on it.
Watch out for it.
Didn't put a hand. All he told them to do what? Go around the city. This day, I want you to go how many times? 7 times. The other days, I want you to go how many times? 1 time. Just go around there. And then on that 7th day, I want you to go how many times? 7 times. And that 7th time, what I want you to do? shout it out. So when you come in God's house, what you need to do? Shout it out. Because what? God bless you. Did it bless you?
Yeah.
Did it wake you up this morning?
Yeah.
Did it close your right mind?
Yeah.
So what I'll be doing is shout it
Shout it out.
out. Anytime I wake up in the morning, I'll be shouting out.
Yes, sir.
Because I gotta know that God, he's been good
It
to me.
is good.
He didn't have to do it.
That's it.
But what he did it anyhow.
Yeah.
So I need to let that God is still good.
Good.
Come on, Nick.
I can't go no further than that. I'm not rich. I just feel good when I think about what God said. He doesn't want you to do what? Shout it out.
Shout it out.
I don't do it like that.
Come on in there. Come on in there, Nick.
No. We gonna stop this thing here. But this is what we got to do. We
Yeah.
got to shout out that God, everybody knows that God is what? Still good. Remember, when you went to the cafe, you shouted out.
Yes,
I know people said my wife said before they walk up in the door, what they were doing. They were shouting out. But now, when we come up in the church, what we do? We so quiet and we have mouths. So we need to do what? Shout out. Everybody. How many times he said? 7 times. And what day? On the 7th day. That's good enough. Somebody can get another count here, but that's all right. And before, anybody else got something to say about this? I like it 7. 7 days. How many days it took God's grace to help them? 6 days. And on the 7th day, what did he do? He rest. But this day, Joshua, he didn't rest. Joshua never went around that day. What? They shouted out, and then once they did that, Joshua's work was complete. They went in and they what? They took the city. Can you believe our fortress? 2 walls. Hand on it. Who put the hand on it? God. How? Because they listened to what he told them to do. Don't do nothing, but do what I tell you to do. So if you do what God tells you to do, the beginning may look rough, but it's the what count? It's the end.
Yeah.
The end was counted. In the front down right here, this end counted.
Yeah.
Now I have a question, since that done got good to us. Let's look at this question. The question says, what was Christ's purpose for making obedience a proof of our love for him? I'm sorry.
We got one
Too
more
good.
verse.
Go
One
ahead.
more. So the people shouted when the priest blew with the trumpet. And it came to pass, when the people heard the sound of the trumpet, and the people shouted with a great shout, that the wall fell down flat, so that the people went up into the city, every man straight before him, and they took the city.
Every man. This place was 1,800 feet below sea. And what they did, they went up and they took the city. Now, who was not harmed in that city?
That lady that's on that wall.
Rahab. That lady of the city. Her and her family was not harmed. Everybody else was harmed in that city because he took that city from them. He did what? Just what he said. But what Joshua did, Joshua had to follow what he said. When Joshua followed, he said, they took that city. Took that city. City with 2 walls around. And they put a hand on it. To God. Then they made it known. What's that do? That let us know there's nothing too hard for God.
Nothing.
Even when you have sickness in your life,
Yes, sir.
it's not too hard for God.
Yes, sir.
If you got cancer in your life,
Sir.
it's not too hard for God. If you got business in your life, it's not too hard for God. Now, with all that being said, before we get into something else, I'm gonna leave y'all today with Sister Mahalia. Come on, Mahalia. Yeah, I know you know. You don't like Mahalia Jackson. Come on, Mahalia. Come on, Mahalia.
Oh, yeah.
Here's Joshua fought the battle of Jericho, Jericho, Jericho. Joshua fought the battle of Jericho, and the wall came tumbling down. Whoa! Joshua fought the battle of Jericho, Jericho, Jericho down. Oh, Joshua, Joshua. Joshua, 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 the battle of Jericho, 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 Joshua, the battle of Jericho, and the war